Let's go.
Matthew, it's honored to have you on. Happy to
Delighted
do
to be here. Thanks for having me.
One of my favorite things in the world to do is interview people who are incredibly jet lagged. So I hope that
then I fit the right criteria. Perfect.
the reason we're talking, and I'm the beneficiary of this, is that you have a brand new vintage of wine, 2012, and we're going to get into the story of why this wine is important. Luckily, I get to drink it while we do. But first, you have one of the most historic and wide stories in wine. And the Champagne region itself has a lot of history, but very few have the history that you have. And so I want to ask you, in the hundreds of years, nearly over 200 years that your family has had the domain, Billecart-Salmon, how do I even start a conversation of what it feels like to be, you're the sixth generation, is that correct? Seventh. Okay. Let's start there. When you're born, how often are you reminded of your place in this family?
The reality is I can't compare.
Right. You don't
So
have any
people
other...
say, what is it like? I could give you a more intelligent response if I'd known another life that wasn't like way. I am born, for better or for worse, Billecart in Champagne. That's where I grew up. So for me, as a child, obviously, as you grow older and you travel, it's easier to get a degree of perspective. But as you grow up, you're a Billecart kid in Champagne. For you, everything is normal. A vineyard is normal. A harvest is normal. A bottle of champagne, maybe not every day, but very, very frequently is normal. I appreciate when I come here, it sounds abnormal, but it runs in the DNA, it runs in the blood. You mentioned the word family. That is perhaps the most important thing here. Yes, of course, the tip of the iceberg is a house that produces some hopefully amazing champagne, or at least that's what we work on every day. And that's what the entire human ecosystem of Billecart-Salmon is dedicated to do. But at the core, as a child, you just see your parents, your grandparents, your uncle, etc., talking about wine, about champagne, about the ecosystem, much like, I don't know, somebody that grew up in a bakery would find it normal that the parents make bread. So that is just the way it came.
Makes total sense. But I mean, is this the kind of situations where if you're walking around in Epernay, people are like, oh, there he is. I mean, meaning like the children of the bigger houses, I mean, are you guys on another level? Is it kind of like, oh, there's Olivier Krug, there's Mathieu?
It's not like that. You have to bear in mind that first we are in a village. So in Champagne, you have two cities. They're going to sound very small in the context of LA, but bear with me. This is Champagne. This is countryside.
Been there many times. It's wonderful.
Yeah. And Reims is a city, the cathedral and everything. So the big institutional family are more likely to be there. And then Epernay is the nearest. And I'm in Haï. Okay, so we are the big kid in the village. Also, our family are spiritually growers. So there isn't that big sort of castle type of mentality. However, growing up at school, I was a Billecart son, love it or hate it. Therefore, people have a view. And I'll give you a practical example. When I was at school, I don't know, 10, 11, that kind of years. One of the person, I run the company, I run the house. At the end of the day, that's whilst it is a dream in many respects, there is also a part of the job that needs to be done. And a couple of the guys, they actually pumping the wine, and they are people I was at school with. There is a good side of that, and as anything, not everything is good because people have preconceived views sometimes. And we'll come on to that no doubt later, but I don't like people with preconceived views. Which drew a certain way of how I grew up into it. But the question you were perhaps leading more to is, do we get sat down every Sunday to say, you are Billecart, you must behave this way?
Sure.
In reality, no. And I would have reacted pretty badly to it if it had been this way.
Maybe we should open this bottle for the rest of this, but while you're doing that, let me ask, I mean, does it make it harder to innovate or change when you do so many things so right and it's based on so much time? I mean, we're opening up, a 2012 right now?
That's a baby for us.
Of course it's a baby, but it's still that in the terms of, I mean, that's a long process of getting that to market. So, I mean, if you wanted to try something totally different. You've never bottled a holy Pinot Meunier, and you want to do a Pinot
We
Meunier.
have.
No, but I mean, I'm just trying to think of an example.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to do that, does it make it difficult to get permission or for yourself to just go, all right, we're going to do a Pinot Blanc this year. I'm trying to think of different styles. I mean, you don't need to reinvent the wheel in Champagne. It's not a region.
No, but you need to challenge yourself. Within the core, you talk about some of the things that we get given or which are part of the family heritage. If you go really deep down, cheers.
Cheers.
A lot of the things that we have learned, perhaps we get taught, is we are growers that have succeeded despite the challenges.
Mm-hmm.
So within that, there is a deep sense of insecurity and the need to constantly over-deliver to be able to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are one of the very last few family-owned and family-run champagne estate. And champagne is the only thing we do. You still have now a handful of real family-owned businesses, but often they've delegated the management to an external person, who is, by the way, probably much more competent than I would ever be. But at the core is we think the family needs to be at the helm, because this is not about doing a job, it's about transmitting values.
Right.
Okay? Some of it will come down to farming. We have in my generation, you say, could this tradition prevent us from innovating? Was where we were getting to. I converted the entire estate to certified organic, and I've just put 10 hectares in certified biodynamic.
Did you get any pushback for that? No.
I would get pushback for anything that would in any way go against the value or the desire to live the family ethos. And the family ethos is terrible, but bear with me. The family ethos is give priority to quality, thrive for excellence. For me, it sounds very corny.
Does it sound better in French?
Donner la priorité à la qualité, viser l'excellence. No, not really. Where it becomes incredibly powerful is we actually believe it. So when everybody is reducing their aging and releasing wines that right now, I would say most of the market in very good houses, by the way, or producers, they're releasing 2016, 2018. I arrived with the 2012. Does it make an economic sense? No. Would the wine be as good if I'd released it 4 years earlier? I think you know the answer to that.
Sure.
And we have been, the last release of Nicolas François was 2008. We have been out of the market with this cuvée for 2 years because it was one of the way of achieving greatness. You talk about some of the things we get taught as a kid. That's one of them. You don't mess about. People will have to wait. We will lose. No. Your job, one of the big thing in my job is, which is probably the only lesson or the main lesson, to be unfair, I took from my cousin who ran the house for 25 years. That's on the first day I move. He says, you see this bottle, because in his office, which is now my office, you have the range of the bottling on the shelf. Okay. He says, you see this bottle? And I say, yeah, it's a bottle of... I say, no, but what is it? I say, well, it's a bottle of Billecart. I say, you see, it's not just that. On that bottle, there is your name on it, or our name on it. Everywhere you go, you make sure you can look at anybody in the eye and say, I'm proud of that bottle. Because the sales force, whether it's our own, whether it's our distribution partners, will say, that one is not as good because whatever excuse they can come up with, you can't. So your job is to make sure that every single bottle that leaves the winery is worthy of carrying that name. End of the lesson.
No pressure. So you think in centuries at this point. The winery's 205 years. Tell me, what can you tell me about the history of your family and how long it goes back? I really do want to get to how your family has stuck together through some of the hardest times.
Sure. First, you start from the very beginning. We know the Billecart family and the Salmon family were there at least from the 16th century.
Okay.
They're probably there before, but they are Billecart and Salmon people buried in the church from these days. So that we are certain that they were there. That is a different heritage to most of the champagne houses, who tended to be people that came from the eastern side of Europe with often Germanic, what you'd call Germany today, heritage. So the people that moved in because they saw an industry blossoming. We were not. We are farmers. We are what you would call today growers. Okay? We had land, which we made wine. There have been wine made in Champagne since the Romans. So vineyard is not new. We had one advantage, that we had that land, we had the vineyard, and the Marne River it flows through Aïe. Therefore, we had access to trade, and we had boats. And boats is like what enabled you to sell wines to Paris. That's really the two things that were needed, plus ambition and a lot of craziness. Because when the house gets founded in the modern world, the House of Champagne, Billecart-Salmon, in 1818 by my great-great-great-great-grandfather, a gentleman called Nicolas François Billecart. He marries the beautiful lady of the village, Elizabeth Salmon. The two families get together and they create House Billecart-Salmon. So that's how it got organized. But at the beginning, it's just a young couple, ambitious, some would say crazy, with very limited financial wherewithals as compared to the other families that moved in. And we made it work over 7 generations. Now, your point is then, it hasn't been an easy ride? Absolutely not. If you look back, there is absolutely no reason for us to be still alive and independent 205 years later. So you look and you say, how? Why? Well, luck. And then you could say, my old boss used to say, the harder I work, the luckier I get. So I think we have our feet very firmly on the ground. We never had the big house on the Avenue de Champagne or in Reims. No. The house where the office and a lot of the vinification and even the bottling still happens, whereas the machinery has obviously changed. It's in the same site than there was in 1818. That brings some perspective. That brings humility. That brings cautiousness. That calls for long-term vision about feeling proud of being entrusted with client trust. You don't feel bigger than the people you're with. And then through the tough times, you pick yourself up, you dust yourself up, and you just keep going. And whether it's COVID, whether it's World War II, whether all the things or transmission problems that may have happened in the past. And look, there is something cool about being part of a champagne adventure. I'm not saying there are many, many other ways of being proud of a business venture. But we're proud of that family heritage. We're proud of being a dinosaur, a surviving dinosaur. I am here today to talk to you, and it's fantastic, and we're sharing a great glass of Nicolas François. But fundamentally, when I'm finished with it in 20 years' time, I will only measure myself on this: have I made the wines better, much like the generations before me did? Can I look at the 8th generation in the eye, whether it's my kids, my nephews, my cousin, whoever that person is, and say, okay, I did my very best, off you go, and I set yourself up for everything to succeed, but it will be up to you.
And that's pretty ambitious and also small at the same time. It's kind of wonderful to have that perspective. The winemaking here in the United States, we don't have that history, unfortunately. I mean, we had prohibition and all sorts of things that we did to ourselves. And how did you, I guess this is going to be a weird personal question, but how did the family stick together? I mean, families, generally the reason companies fall apart that are family-based is because the family just butts heads at some point, and then people can't be the one to say, I'm sorry, and things break apart. How did it not become 3 companies competing with each other at some point? Was it? It's a big question.
It almost did. I mean, the 3rd generation, we lost half of the vineyard because 2 brothers didn't get along.
Okay.
So like any family, are not looking you in the eye and say we are a perfect family, where it's not true or it's not the real story. And in Billecart-Salmon, we care about authenticity. So has it been an easy ride? No, I think in many ways, the fact it has been so hard sometimes has got us closer together.
Yeah.
I think if we'd been perhaps feeling bigger than we were or losing perspective, and look, as an independent producer, you get reminded very often in reality of the precarity we face. I don't know whether we face, but they are there. The global competitive landscape for champagne and wine and spirit is, we are a fly sometimes fighting against dragons, right? So They have great strength and they're great at many things, and some of them have contributed to the structuring of the champagne market. So this is absolutely not a criticism, but we are a very different animal.
Yeah.
We have right now 4 generations of our family alive. Okay, my great uncle is 102. He ran the house between the 60s and the early 90s. Okay, he's still there. You get a lot of moral support for the adversity, and the memory is fresh of the bad things that have happened. Therefore, your feet get, anytime you feel big, the family will bring you right back down.
Certainly.
Because we know that humility is at its core, one of the reasons why we're still here.
So your uncle's 102. I mean, how did you guys get through the tough parts of the 20th century? I mean, talking about occupation by, how in the world did you survive that? As a brand, I don't mean.
Yeah, sure.
The world's at war.
I wasn't born, so
and France was more at war than anyone.
And Champagne,
especially World War I, but World War II.
Yeah.
I just wonder how. What were you told about this time?
Oh, I mean, let's take World War II.
I have my American perspective, which is very different.
No, but here is the glimpse, right? So at that stage, Charles Roland Billecart ran the house. So he's my great grandfather. Sorry, 5th generation. So he was a fighting pilot during World War I. But he was his father, or his uncle, sorry, that was still transitioning. World War II, first he had to send his son to forced labor in Germany because he was the mayor of the town. He had to choose, I think it was a handful, about 12 young men to send. So he sent his son in as part of the pack. That sends a different perspective. Yeah. When his son, obviously, forced labor, as you can imagine, it's not a holiday camp, so it was hard work. Who is now my great uncle, when he came back from forced labor, there was less than 50,000 bottles left in the cellar. The German had a good time. We had a good name already, so they came for a tasting with World War I, and they came back for World War II. Mm-hmm. So we have no bottles left before 1945.
I was just going to ask that question. So
Nothing.
1945 is the
first vintage available, because when great uncle came back, I'm sure there was still a little bit left. He sold what he had to sell to keep the show on the road. Everybody told him at that stage, including his father, give up, don't take that. The thing is dead. Like we won't pick up. And it's like, there is no way I'm letting that go. And through grit and determination, it's hard, because it's people say, how do you achieve long aging? Well, probably not in the first year, but 5 years later, he produced 100,000. He decides to sell 70,000. That's how you move your cellar from 50 to 80. And then this is how you do it.
Stepping stones, yeah.
You don't move from an aging ratio of 2 years to 6 years in one go. The fact that it's very hard work for us to sometimes get there and it's expertly crafted is one thing. However, do not lose sight of what we do. I am not a consulting firm trying to look clever. I am ultimately trying to be a supporting act in your moment of happiness. That's why we wake up in the morning. That's what, if we don't achieve it, we don't do it.
A supporting act in your moment of happiness.
Yeah, and if we're very good, we create the moment of happiness.
Yeah.
But I think, again, we need to be humble.
I love it. Well, let's talk about this wine here. I may need another splash. Sorry, I'm drinking too fast. This is really good.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. So 2012, we'll just do a little tasting here of why is this so important?
So this is Nicolas François, the very best of what we do in traditional blend. That's a signal we are sending you with this wine. It's also the oldest prestige cuvée, and that's also why it bears the name of Nicolas François Billecart, my great-great-great-grandfather. So what are we trying to achieve there? We need to demonstrate to you what is the best way, Billecart way of demonstrating a classic cut champagne. In this context, this is the oldest prestige cuvée. This is the one we won Champagne of the Millennium with 1959, 1961. It's called Nicolas François since 1964. So it's been going a long time, and we reckon we've been doing it since early 19th century, not 20th century. What does it take to do this? It takes an exceptional year. When you're no longer doing the very good, you need nature to play for you. A blend of Pinot Noir dominant, very frequently, never say always, because always is dangerous in winemaking. 60% Pinot Noir from Montagne de Reims. and 40% Chardonnay from Côte des Blancs. Okay? Long aging on lees, a blend of barrel vinified wine, minority, in this case 10%, and stainless steel vinified wine in the Billecart-Salmon way, so cold temperature fermentation, an innovation of the 1960s from my great uncle, which you make the fermentation last, call it 2 to 3 weeks, to preserve the freshness and the identity of the terroir in this. And that's something that runs through the entire thread. Not produced every year, but it has to be the very best. Then you come to your question about the vintage. Last release 2008, second release 2012. So when we say we only make it in exceptional years, I think we have things to back it up. 12 is a year of adversity. It's a bit like 24. 12 is a year that demonstrates that with a pretty rubbish spring, a complicated flowering season, pretty runny. So not a good time in the vineyard.
Starting off tough.
We never want Nicolas François to taste the same as the previous vintage because it is the very best of what we do in traditional blend, and it has to represent its vintage.
I mean, honestly, this is just it's kind of at the top level of what you get in champagne as a whole. I mean, drinking this, I've had a lot of champagne, and this is a pretty special bottle. Honestly, I'm glad this is the first time I've ever tasted it. Is with you because it's.
That's why I landed it. I landed 5 hours ago just for this.
Just for me, yes, of course.
Well, I come to LA to present the 2012 Nicolas François. That's the reason why I'm here.
Yeah.
So and you know it starts in 2 hours the presentation. So you are the first one in LA. That's a reality.
I mean, it's quite an honor.
Wine is for sharing, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, very.
And there is a lot of wine in that bottle. That's why we feel so proud. You know, it's a little bit like seeing your son win the, I don't know, the singing competition or the thing at sport is, you know how much effort you've put in as a parent. So there is that little bit of a proud moment when everybody likes it. You don't want to say it, but you feel
everyone's got, the acid in this is so incredibly balanced and yet like beautifully singing. You know, it stands up and it sings and yet it's not above the orchestra. You know, it's really very well positioned.
Harmonious and balanced. Balance is, we say Billecart identity is finesse, elegance, and balance. I know these are great adjectives, but the cold fermentation brings that finesse. You don't get a big muscular wine, but the balance is the hardest thing to achieve. You know,
what would be to close this out? What would be your favorite thing to eat with this if you're going to have food?
Do I need to eat?
I mean, I find champagne to be one of my favorite things to have high and low with, meaning the wine being the high, and you could have anything with this. Fried chicken, you could have. I mean, that kind of a thing with a wine like this is among my favorite things to have. You know, instead of being like, oh, caviar or something like that. No. It's always, for me, it's always, you know.
Caviar is for Blanc de Blanc.
Caviar is for Blanc de Blanc. Yeah, okay.
No, but you can, it is very versatile. I mean, all our wines are very gastronomic, but it can call obviously with a fish, which is where the minerality gives you, but that would easily take on a poultry with mushroom.
Sure.
It would easily do that. And with age, then you can move on to white meat like veal, etc. Cheese. People underestimate the greatness of champagne with cheese. Like you want to look clever, a cheese plate and a bottle of Sous-Bois, that will make you the star of the guest. I've used this trick so many times. Doesn't take any cooking. You say, I'll bring the cheese and the bottle of champagne. You look like a hero.
Oh, that's good.
Top tip.
Well, it's a pleasure and an honor, my friend. I hope
Thank you so much.
Hope you're standing upright at the end of tonight. Good luck.
Always. We're opening magnums, so I'll be standing up even more.
That's right.
Thank you for your time and appreciate you thinking of us.
Of course.